Thanks for our dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, for the educative discussion. It is now time for discussion panel number 6, which is an exciting topic discussing the launching of a new challenge for the TIP Summit 2021, the next big thing, DeepTech, moderated by Mr. Ernest Xue, the Chief Executive Officer of Slate Alt and Head of Hello Tomorrow, Singapore. The participating delegates are, starting with Dr. Steve Griffiths, the Senior VP, Research and Development, Khalifa University of Science and Technology from the UAE, and Mr. Sumit Vardhan, the Patent and Market Research Consultant at SMES. Please welcome them.
Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. This is one of the last sessions today. I think it's the last or the second last. So thank you for staying through all the way and taking valuable time out to listen to the experts here, Sumit and Steve, talk about the money question, which is how do you commercialize deep technology? I think all of us here are cognizant that we won't actually get straight answers out of this session because it's a complicated subject. If it was simple, we wouldn't be having this panel discussion. So to kick things off, what is deep technology? Deep technology would be technology, science, and engineering that is at the forefront, at the bleeding edge of what's going on in research. And our goal here really is to translate that into solutions that are useful to all of us here in the room. We face immense issues, problems, challenges globally, and unfortunately, these issues and challenges require complicated solutions as well. So with that, let's dive straight in to Steve and Sumit. Steve, if you can just give us a brief background of yourself and the work you do at Khalifa University, and your perspective of how important translational research is and why.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the panel today. This is a topic of deep tech is one that's very dear to my heart. My role at Khalifa University is Senior Vice President for Research and Development. So at Khalifa, I oversee all of the strategic aspects of R&D, the different areas you focus on, the verticals and the horizontal platforms, and then, of course, the research administration, which takes care of the sponsor research as far as grants and contracts, tech transfer, which is key to this topic, the research labs, research computing, and then the partnerships. On the deep tech, I think this is a great topic for universities because it really is at the core of what a university is supposed to do, because when you say deep tech, you're really talking about going from the fundamental science towards the development of the application of that science into, hopefully, eventually products which have transformational capabilities for key themes that we're seeing emerging as far as challenges in society. There's many of them today. You look at health, you look at the environment, you look at food, I'd say water part of the environment. These areas have a huge number of opportunities for science moving in toward commercial value. Now, when this is the approach, I'd say what we need to be thinking about and where the universities, such as Khalifa University, have an opportunity is you set up your strategies such that you're focusing on these areas which are at the forefront of where technologies have to be created for the challenge we face. Khalifa University, energy, water and environment, healthcare, space, being both astronautics and aeronautics, are areas we focus on. Then we have the platforms, advanced materials, and manufacturing that couples with that, and then AI, data science, ICT, and robotics are the areas that then feed into the verticals. With all that, you have the key opportunity to take your scientific understanding of how you can progress challenges that face us, and then try to take the science that you uncover, and you have publications that are high impact and such, but develop technologies which then can be applied into patents, which typically are at the fore of where a deep tech is. You need protectable IP. That's one of the almost definitional piece of deep tech, and then try to move that into a commercial value for society. So I'd say our challenge, and probably what will be the focus of the discussion, is how do you then take a look at moving this interesting set of ideas that you create from the science, from the research in these key sectors, and get those out so that they become impactful for not just the UE, but the world at large.
Thanks, Steve. And Sumit, if you can briefly introduce yourself and talk about, IP is key, right to technology. It's your right to enjoy the benefits that come from IP, and without benefits as the motivation, none of us would really do anything. So if you can introduce yourself and talk about a bit about the work that you do, and also give us a brief overview of the IP landscape here in the UAE.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, very good evening to everyone. I am a patent and market research consultant at SMEPM, and I am responsible for this TIP and Takamul program, the applications we are receiving here. So I have been involved in the evaluation of these applications. I have interviewed all of them, and I'm responsible for assisting these applications to go from the lab prototype to a POC and to a industrial version, and bring that commercialized version into the market. And IP is very important for a company because the invention that a company has made, they should protect it to create a barrier for other market players to enter into the market, to have a competitive edge, and to protect their idea. And because a patent right is granted to a patentee that excludes others from manufacturing or selling their invention without the patentee's permission. So you can monetize your IP either by licensing or by selling your patents to them. This also gives you a freedom to operate in the market for your own invention later on when you come with a commercialized version of the product, and also avoids you from being copied or from the lawsuits that you might get from infringement issues.
Okay, thanks, Sumit. This is off our off the question card, right? So I apologize in advance if this is slightly uncomfortable, but in your opinion, there is investors. Everyone looks at IP. They look at things that have been filed. In under what circumstances do you think it's better to black box rather than file patents? For what types of companies, in your experience, has something like that worked better? How should companies be thinking about these things, these patent strategies going as they try to commercialize?
Yeah. So you are talking about trade secrets, like Coca-Cola has kept the trade secret of its recipe.
Yeah.
So, for example, you have an algorithm, and there are some jurisdictions in which software cannot be patented, as in UAE. You have to combine it with a hardware to get it patented. So for a software, if you have an algorithm, so you can keep your source code as a trade secret. So, and if you are into a food and beverage industry, the composition, the ingredients you are using in your food, that you can keep as trade secret so as to avoid others using the same, because the life of a patent is just for only 20 years. So when the patent expires, you can't claim others that they are using your invention. So within the period of 20 years only, you have the right to exclude others from using your invention. After 20 years, your invention is public.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, you should keep your invention as a trade secret.
And on to you, Steve. What's the process of developing deep technology innovations at universities such as Khalifa University that you're at, and what have some of the largest challenges been for you, working at the institutional level, and also for the researchers who are working on the ground, really working on these innovations?
Sure, I think there's probably two pieces of this. So there's the development of the deep tech, and then there's the commercialization. So the development, I'll talk about that first. I think that's maybe the easier of the two sides. With the development, what we start off with, as I was alluding to earlier, is an understanding and awareness of where you need to put your bets on R&D. And so what we started off is when we merged, actually Khalifa University, for those not aware, it's a merger of 3 universities just recently, back in 2017. And when we merged a university focused on the oil and gas sector, then one on clean renewable energy and water environment, then a broad-based university, the question was to create a strategy which will have areas of R&D which are going to produce good science and good technology. So first thing we did was we said, what verticals, sector-focused research should we be doing? what horizontals will be the future of where R&D is headed and will produce these kind of results. So we did that, and as I said earlier, from that strategy, we got the environmental component, the clean energy component, healthcare, which is a huge piece of opportunity, and then all the platforms in the areas where deep tech is really flourishing, which is around your AI and your ICT and robotics, and then in advanced materials manufacturing. So with that strategy, then the next question is, how do you stimulate research to happen in those areas? And so you need an approach to getting good work done. And so the second layer was to look at the entire technology readiness spectrum and say, let's back up to that area of fundamental science, which we know is one of the key foundations of deep tech, and then create programs where you'll get the best research produced in these areas that are on the strategy. And so we put together competitive internal research funding programs, research center funding programs, and then, of course, if faculty are coming in, we have startups for them. But on the competitive internal funding and the research centers, all the solicitations were put out in a way that we've requested faculty to come back with their ideas that were under the areas, but when evaluated by international peer review, would be looked at as being very competitive to produce good science, good technology. And then of the number of submissions we had, we'd only award those that really came back with strong review and high ranking. And so from that, you start to build a portfolio of these research projects between teams of faculty, as well as research centers. So we have sponsored centers, and we also have centers that we funded. We now have 20 research centers and 3 research institutes. Of the 20 research centers, about half of them we funded competitively with the view that areas like genomics, functional biology, advanced materials, carbon management and hydrogen, water technology, all these areas of advanced power for managing intermittency of the grid would be the areas the UAE and the world would need to have new technologies developed. And so we fund those. So with those centers and those projects being awarded in these areas, then the work starts to be done, and then you start to produce results, you publish your papers, hopefully they're high impact, and you produce an invention disclosure, and then because you think you have something which is a patentable, and then we go through the process, which I'm getting to is where the challenge starts to hit. If I want to create the deep tech with impact, is this idea that I've had under these sectors, under this strategy, is it going to be worthwhile to generate something of value for the UAE and the world? And so I think that's where we start to face, okay, what is that you have, and are we going to file that and invest in that because it is an idea with a potential market? And I think we've had, now we have near 400 patents that do the grant that are filed, and we're just getting a little bit of I'd say a little backlog on this because we're seeing where, we should take our filed patents that some have been granted and try to move them to commercialization, either through going to incubators and trying to get the faculties with IP licenses going to them to want to create companies, or going to companies and wanting them to do more proof of concept, more development work with us, or finding development partners to do the proof of concept in conjunction with us. And so that's where I say, once you got the academic part, which is traditional, in areas that can stimulate deep tech, and you start to try and push out the technology into something meaningful, that's where it gets hard.
Yep.
I think that's the crux of the whole issue on commercialization is, where will you be able to have that impact, and how do you go about that? And maybe that would be another level of discussion we can have in the course of the session here.
Okay, let's hope we can clear that within this 20 minutes. So if I'm hearing correctly, what makes the commercialization of deep tech difficult really is that it requires multiple players, all marching to the same tune, with this, who are aligned as well, right? If you're talking about a ICT digital technology, it's a lot easier to just grow and scale, and to hit market. But for deep technology companies, apart from funding, there's also the need to connect with knowledge. There's the need for technical expertise. There's the need for business expertise. There's the need for market access as well. And these seem to be the purviews or the jurisdictions of organizations that tend to not have extremely aligned motivations, right? So you're looking at government departments, you're looking at large corporations, you're looking at tech transfer offices, you're looking at the startups themselves, you're looking at investors, and all these parties need to come in, agree on certain key points in order to push something forward. And what we are talking about is an entire ecosystem. It's a symbiotic ecosystem that we're looking at, right? What areas, this question is open to either of you. What areas within the ecosystem here would you like to see be further developed, and in what way? in order to encourage more active commercialization of deep technology, better companies, or even stronger, more ready use cases of technology that's coming out from the lab?
Well, I'll just give you a quick perspective. I mean, I think when you try to move out to commercialization, there's a few areas I can think of that would be immediately applicable, which we're trying to stimulate. One is we'd love to see startup companies happening. When you're going to form a startup company, you need to have an ability to have early stage investors, middle, sort of intermediate stage investors, and late stage investors. Being able to take the technology risk and take the market risk. I mean, many times if this is sort of a new area, and the entrepreneur, so to speak, maybe it's a faculty or a researcher, if they need to get some investment before there's even really awareness of what the market might be, or if the market will be accepting of this technology, how do you make investor comfortable with that? For the technology risk, sometimes the technologies, what are the metrics on which you say it's good or bad? I mean, what are the new? We know that we can say that we can benchmark something where it's an incremental technology, but if it's radically new, what is the way in which you measure the potential for success, and then the length. 10 years it could take for deep tech. So I think what I've seen is an opportunity in the areas that do deep tech very well. If you look at the Silicon Valley, Route 128, MIT, many years I've been there, you have these clusters around areas which are core. So MIT right now, you go to clean tech and biotech, it's huge. Everyone there, there's deep tech, there's incremental tech, but there's big companies helping to push the ideas forward. There's venture capitalists, and there's investors, angel investors, early stage. They're comfortable with the risk. They know the risk, they know the people, they bet on people as much as they bet on technology, and so the ecosystem starts to work. There are failures and there are successes, but it's this convergence of the small companies, the investors, the academics, the government providing its support. Many times you just have to have government support, push technology to the point it's got the proper proof of concept. It's all happening in one place. I think cluster focus, having startup companies, having big companies, having government support, and then seeing those successes start up in areas which we know are most important, or where we can have competitive advantage, is probably where the UE could do a good job. And I see it's happening. There are great initiatives starting up. One announced by the Ministry of Climate Change the other day about looking at the environment now with Hub 71 and a number of other collaborators. It looks like it's something that could really get legs, and I'd like to see that happen.
Okay, and with regards to your experience, possibly working with researchers in Khalifa University who are looking to translate something into market, have there been specific challenges, or imagine if you're addressing them right now? Yes. Here, right? What would you say to them, right? And
well, I'd say it's a long process, and so as a researcher, you have your portfolio and your eggs in one basket. I mean, if you have a good idea, you want to pursue it. You have to pursue it with ambition. We have a few examples of faculties and researchers that are now trying to move their technology out. They've either gone to a local accelerator or incubator and tried to get that market access, get that support for tech development, and they're making their way with what they can do from a local market perspective, or they're working with us to try and get the support of a larger organization to develop their technology to the point where it can be trialed and it can be potentially of value for a government agency. The key is you have to have the passion and the ambition, I think, inside to be more than just a scientist. You've got to be someone that wants to see the impact of what you do happen in the society, so that when you hit these challenges and things go wrong and you just can't get your things to work, you don't say, forget about this, is a waste of my time. That's where it's sort of that motivation coming from having clusters, having the support, having the ecosystem is beneficial. So I'd say it's, stick to it. I mean, that's what they have to do.
Yeah, thanks for that. So when I founded Slate Out, even up to today, I being the owner of my own company, I constantly feel like I'm in a constant existential crisis. And it really helps a lot just to see people who are going through the same path, be it either celebrate their successes or struggle alongside. It really helps that. So over in Singapore, it's I think between UAE and Singapore, we have we have some similarities, and it mainly lies in the size of our market, the size of our local organic market, being able to support innovations, especially innovative ones. So in Singapore, for example, a deep technology company could very well just not be able to find a customer in the market at all. And the company has to go out and look for a customer base somewhere else, and has to learn to navigate the different challenges in a different culture, different geography. And I suspect it's going to be the same here as well, right? For UAE entrepreneurs or scientist entrepreneurs, aspiring scientist entrepreneurs. So but this also brings to the table the question of intellectual property protection, right? Because these entrepreneurs are not going to be operating purely in one jurisdiction. They're going to have to be going to have to be exploring overseas markets. Do you have any words of advice for entrepreneurs who have to take this into consideration as they seek expansion?
So, for filing patents in multiple jurisdictions, there are two ways. One is if you go through the Paris Convention, and one if you go through the PCT Convention. Through Paris Convention, if you file a patent in one country, you have a time of 1 year to file the same patent on the technology in other countries. So within a period that is called grace period, you have to file a patent in other countries. But with PCT, you have a time of around 30 months, which you call grace period here, and you get the advantage of time. Within this 30 months, you can file a PCT application, and then this application goes through examination at WIPO, and after 30 months, this enters into national phases. National phases means you can enter into different jurisdictions. So you have to designate the countries in which you want to enter. This saves you time, this saves you a lot of money, and you can decide upon in which jurisdictions do you want to enter based on your market research.
Okay, thank you so much, Sumit. Unfortunately, our time is up, and I thank the panelists really for such a short, insightful session, and I'll open it up to the floor for questions. Any mic anywhere? Technical crew? Or you can shout out your question if you're comfortable with that.
From the first filing, am I audible? Okay, from the first filing, for example, you file in US. So you have a time of 12 months, you can file a PCT applications. From the first filing, you have 30 months to enter into a national phase.
Okay.
If you have filed in,
I'm sorry, sir. Is it all right if we take this question offline? Because we are running a bit short on time. That's all. But we are happy to answer your questions. When we get off stage. I just want to end this session. Thanking everyone for being here, for gracing us with your presence. Coming here to listen to all of us, and to end on a bit of a positive note as well. Deep technology investments have been increasing approximately by around 25% a year since 2015. We saw about $7 billion invested in 2015. In 2018.